Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the world of Genoa City, emotions are never simple and forgiveness is never easy. Devin Winters finds himself standing at a crossroads he never asked for, forced to confront feelings that refuse to settle quietly. Even after a heartfelt visit in the May 19 episode where Mariah Copeland offers her sincere apology, the weight of the past still lingers heavily between them, like an unhealed wound that refuses to close. Devin hears her words, but they do not fully reach the part of him that still remembers the pain, the fear, and the shock of what happened when Dominic Winters was kidnapped. Mariah, on the other hand, tries to shift his focus away from resentment and toward forgiveness, not just of her, but of himself as well. Yet, despite the emotional honesty in their exchange, there is no certainty that Devin can ever fully let go of what she did, and the fragile remains of their friendship continue to hang in uncertainty. What makes everything even more complicated is Mariah's current situation, as she is still in a psychiatric facility, working through her recovery and trying to rebuild her mental and emotional stability. In this confined space, all she can truly do is reflect, heal, and hope that one day she will be seen as more than her worst mistake. Devin, however, remains deeply conflicted because even as he processes his emotions, he cannot erase the memory of Dominic's kidnapping and the terror that came with it. There is a strong possibility that this pain may never fully leave him, and unless Mariah finds a way to truly redeem herself in his eyes, Devin may continue carrying resentment long into the future. Yet, time in Genoa City has a way of shifting perspectives, and the possibility of Mariah's eventual release from the facility introduces a new layer of tension. When that day comes, instead of healing old wounds, it may reignite Devin's anger all over again, especially if he feels her release is too soon or undeserved, and he may even believe she should still be in prison rather than walking free. Still, within this fractured relationship lies a possible path toward redemption that neither of them can fully see yet. Devin is haunted by what happened to Dominic, but the story could shift in a powerful and unexpected direction if Mariah were to become the very person who protects him next time. In a twist of fate, she could find herself in the right place at the right moment, stepping in to save Dominic from a life-threatening situation, perhaps even pulling him away just before a speeding car could strike. Another possibility looms in the shadows of Genoa City's chaos, especially if Matt Clark were to spiral out of control again after the return of his memories, creating danger that once again threatens Victor Newman's grandson and the entire family's fragile peace. In such a moment of chaos and fear, Mariah could intervene in a way no one expects, placing herself between danger and Dominic, ultimately changing the way Devin sees her forever. If she were to save Dominic's life under such extreme circumstances, it could become the turning point that transforms Devin's anger into reluctant gratitude and eventually back into trust. In that powerful act of redemption, Mariah might finally remind Devin of the person he once believed she was, proving that even broken bonds can sometimes be rebuilt when actions speak louder than mistakes. And as future twists continue to unfold in her storyline, one thing remains certain in Genoa City. Mariah Copeland's journey is far from over, and every step ahead may hold another unexpected turn. As Mariah's time in the psychiatric facility slowly moves forward, the outside world of Genoa City continues to shift without her, yet the consequences of her past actions never truly fade from the people she hurt. Devin, despite his attempts to move forward, finds himself stuck in cycles of reflection, replaying the same painful memory of Dominic's kidnapping as if it refuses to lose its clarity. Every update about Mariah's progress only adds more conflict inside him, because part of him understands she is trying to heal, while another part still sees the fear she once caused. And when the possibility of her discharge begins to draw closer, that internal battle only intensifies, making him question whether forgiveness is even realistic, or if some wounds simply remain permanent. Yet beneath his frustration, there is still a faint trace of something he cannot fully erase. The memory of who Mariah was to him before everything fell apart, when trust and friendship felt unbreakable. When Mariah finally steps closer to re-entering the outside world, the atmosphere around her becomes tense, as though Genoa City itself is holding its breath. Devin's reaction is immediate and emotional, struggling between disbelief and resistance, convinced that her return might be happening too soon, and fearing it could reopen dangers he is not ready to face. But Mariah is no longer the same person who walked into that facility. Her time away has forced her into reflection, accountability, and a quiet determination to prove that she is more than her worst moment. Still, redemption does not come easily, And every step she takes back into normal life feels shadowed by doubt from those who once trusted her most. The fragile space between Devin and Mariah becomes even more uncertain as both of them stand on opposite sides of pain, memory, and the possibility of healing that neither fully knows how to reach. Yet fate in Genoa City rarely allows broken relationships to remain static, and danger has a way of pulling people into roles they never expected to play. When a new crisis emerges, one that threatens Dominic once again, whether through reckless chaos in the streets or the return of a dangerous figure like Matt Clark, the city is suddenly forced into survival mode. In that moment of urgency, Mariah's instincts and presence could become the deciding factor between tragedy and safety, placing her directly in the path of harm so Dominic is protected. If she acts in time, saving him from what could have been a devastating accident or worse, everything Devin believes about her could begin to shift in an instant. And in the aftermath of such a moment, where fear gives way to relief, Devin may finally see not just the past mistake that haunts him, but the life Mariah chose to save when it mattered most. It is in that fragile balance between guilt and redemption that their story may finally turn, hinting that even the deepest fractures can begin to mend when a single act of courage changes everything. In the aftermath of such a life-altering moment, the emotional landscape in Genoa City begins to shift in ways no one can fully control. If Mariah truly saves Dominic in a critical situation, the news would spread quickly, carrying shock, disbelief, and reluctant acknowledgement through every corner of Devin's world. For Devin, the moment would feel like the ground beneath his anger finally starts to crack, not because the past disappears, but because the present refuses to stay aligned with his old certainty about her. Watching the evidence of Mariah's courage standing directly against the memory of her mistake would force him into a painful emotional collision he can no longer avoid. Even then, forgiveness would not come instantly, but something quieter and more complicated would begin to take root. Uncertainty about whether holding on to resentment is still justified. In that space between doubt and realization, Devin would begin to see that redemption is not a word, but an action that unfolds in real time, often when it is least expected. As life slowly stabilizes again, the fragile connection between Devin and Mariah would remain suspended in uncertainty, shaped by everything they have been through but no longer defined solely by it. Mariah, having faced both her internal struggles and the consequences of her past, would carry herself with a quieter strength, aware that trust is something she must rebuild step by step rather than demand. Devin, still deeply protective of Dominic, would find himself watching her more closely, not with blind forgiveness, but with a growing recognition that people can change when given the chance to prove it. And within that evolving tension, there would be moments, small but meaningful, where old friendship flickers back to life beneath the weight of everything they endured. Genoa City, as always, would continue moving forward, but the story between Devin and Mariah would remain unfinished, shaped by pain, possibility, and the unpredictable hope that even the most fractured bonds can find their way back from the edge. Even so, Genoa City never allows peace to settle for long before the next wave of tension begins to rise beneath the surface. Just when Devin starts to believe that things might finally be stabilizing, something small but unsettling could reopen old fears, reminding him how fragile trust really is when it has been broken before. A single misunderstanding, a misinterpreted decision, or even the reappearance of a lingering threat connected to Dominic could be enough to pull everyone back into emotional uncertainty. In that renewed pressure, Devin would be forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that forgiveness is not a single decision, but an ongoing struggle that changes shape every time new fear enters the picture. At the same time, Mariah would have to continue proving, not through words but through consistent actions, that her return to the world is not a risk, but a chance at rebuilding what was lost. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the space between them would begin to shift again, not fully healed but no longer completely closed either. In the end, the story of Devin Winters and Mariah Copeland remains one defined by fracture, possibility, and the long road between guilt and redemption, while Dominic Winters continues to represent everything they are both trying to protect in very different ways. Devin himself stands at the center of that emotional storm, still carrying the weight of the past, but no longer able to ignore the evidence of change unfolding before him. Whether he fully regains trust in Mariah or continues to wrestle with doubt, the connection between them is no longer something that can simply be erased. It has transformed into something more complicated, more fragile, and far more human. And as long as Genoa City keeps turning, their paths remain destined to cross again in moments that could either rebuild everything or reopen every wound they are still trying to heal. As the story continues to unfold in Genoa City, the emotional stakes only deepen for everyone connected to the aftermath of those past events. Devon finds himself living in a constant state of emotional contradiction, where gratitude for what might have been a life-saving act clashes directly with the lingering trauma of what once happened to Dominic. Every time he looks at the child, he is reminded not only of survival, but of how close everything came to being permanently shattered, and that memory refuses to lose its intensity. Meanwhile, the idea of trusting Mariah fully again feels like a distant possibility rather than an immediate reality, because trust, once broken in such a devastating way, does not return in a straight line. Yet, even in his resistance, there are moments where Devon catches himself questioning whether holding on to anger is truly protecting anyone anymore, or simply keeping him trapped in the past. And in those quiet, unspoken moments, the possibility of emotional change continues to grow, even if he is not yet ready to admit it out loud. At the same time, danger never fully disappears from Genoa City, and the shadows of past threats always seem ready to resurface when least expected. If a figure like Matt Clark were to reemerge with renewed chaos after the return of buried memories, the entire city could once again be pushed into fear and instability, forcing old wounds to reopen under pressure. In such a scenario, Mariah's role could shift yet again, placing her back into the center of a crisis where instinct, timing, and courage matter more than reputation or history. And if she were once more to stand in the gap between danger and Dominic, protecting him when it matters most, it could finally solidify what Devon has struggled to accept: that people are capable of change even after their darkest moments. In that turning point, forgiveness would no longer be an abstract idea or an emotional debate, but something earned through action, sacrifice, and undeniable proof. And as Genoa City continues its endless cycle of conflict and redemption, the future of Devon, Mariah, and Dominic remains unwritten, suspended between healing and history, waiting for the next moment that will decide everything once again.